many times you've been arrested?
I don't have an actual factual number.
And how did you tell his mom that her son was gone?
So it's just competitive energy and things that you say about other artists while you're in hip-hop culture.
One could watch this and think that you really hate because of the things that you post on Instagram.
And I die in the street about this shit, man. This shit dead serious to me. And then when
You ever see a story hit the internet so fast that people stop scrolling mid-swipe? Like something just doesn't feel like gossip anymore? It feels like a warning. That's exactly what's happening right now. Because over the past 24 hours, reports have been flooding social media, claiming that 50 Cent may have just crossed a line nobody expected him to cross. Not with a diss track, not with a meme, but with something far more permanent. According to multiple online sources and viral clips circulating right now, 50 Cent is allegedly connected to a new documentary concept that people are already calling Surviving T.I. and Tiny. And while nothing has been officially confirmed, the conversations alone are enough to shake the entire industry. Because this isn't just about rap beef anymore. This is about reputation, legacy, and everything that comes with it. Fans are shocked. Timelines are divided. Some people are saying this is just another social media stunt, something designed to get attention and stir controversy.
Out there, he let him know that he's putting out a documentary, Surviving T.I. and Tiny. Man, listen to this. I'm gonna play where T.I. told 50 that he was getting ready to do the same thing to him. And then now 50 and now.
But others are looking at the pattern, the timing, and the way this information is spreading. And they're starting to believe there might be more to it. And that's where things get uncomfortable. Because if these reports are even partially true, then what's being hinted at isn't just another back and forth between two artists. It's something deeper, something personal, something that could potentially reopen conversations that people thought were already behind closed doors. And here's where it gets even more intense. Some of the clips being shared online appear to show interviews, reactions, and moments that feel way too real to just ignore. One voice in a circulating clip says, "I don't even have an actual number," when asked about past arrests. Another moment hints at emotional conversations about loss, consequences, and things that happened off camera. And suddenly, what started as rumors begins to feel like a story unfolding in real time. The energy online has shifted. People aren't just watching anymore. They're analyzing, debating, picking sides. Emotions are running high, and the entire situation feels like it's building towards something bigger. So now the question isn't whether this story is real or not. The real question is, why is it spreading like this? And what exactly is about to come next? The moment those reports started gaining traction, everything shifted from casual gossip into something that felt a lot heavier. People weren't just laughing or reacting anymore, they were digging. Timelines filled with clips, screenshots, and theories, and suddenly it felt like everyone was trying to piece together a puzzle that nobody even knew was complete yet. The conversation wasn't just about what 50 Cent might be doing, it was about why now, why this timing, why this angle, and why did it feel so calculated? One fan tweeted, "This don't feel like trolling no more," and that sentiment spread fast. Because if you've been watching how 50 moves over the years, you know there's always a strategy behind it. Nothing just happens randomly. Every post, every caption, every moment he chooses to go quiet or speak up, it all serves a purpose. And that's exactly what had people paying closer attention this time. According to what's being reported, the idea of a documentary isn't something that just appeared out of nowhere. Whispers of it had been floating around in smaller circles for a while, but nobody really took it seriously until now. It was always brushed off as internet talk, something that would fade like most rumors do. But now, with clips resurfacing and conversations being pulled back into the spotlight, it's starting to feel like those whispers might have been leading somewhere all along.
Fans are used to consuming. It made people question whether this was still about rivalry or if it had turned into something else entirely. Fans are shocked, but they're also divided. Some are saying this is exactly what hip-hop has always been: competition, pressure, pushing boundaries. Others are saying there's a difference between competition and crossing into territory that involves real lives, real families, and real consequences. And that's where emotions really started to run high. T.I., on the other hand, hasn't made any direct statement addressing these specific reports, at least not in a way that confirms or denies anything. But his recent appearances and subtle comments have been enough to keep people guessing. In one interview clip that resurfaced, he said, "You gotta understand, everything ain't meant for the public to interpret," and that line alone sparked a whole new wave of speculation. People began analyzing his tone, his body language, even the timing of when that clip originally aired. Was he hinting at something back then, or is everyone just connecting dots that were never meant to be connected? That's the kind of question that keeps this story alive, because there's no clear answer. Then there's Tiny, who has also found herself pulled back into the center of the conversation. Reports mention that the attention on her has intensified again, with fans revisiting past interviews and moments, trying to read between the lines. The family was left divided in the eyes of the public, even if behind closed doors things might be completely different. But perception, especially online, has a way of shaping reality, whether it's accurate or not. What really added fuel to the situation was how quickly Higleyfing spread. Within hours, multiple pages were posting similar claims, each one adding a slightly different detail, a slightly different angle. And even though none of it was officially confirmed, the repetition made it feel real to a lot of people. That's the power of narrative in the digital age. Once something starts gaining momentum, it doesn't need confirmation to take on a life of its own. One commentator in a viral video said, "It's not about what's proven, it's about what people believe." And that line might be the most accurate description of what's happening right now. Because belief, once it takes hold, is hard to shake. And right now, belief is spreading faster than facts. Meanwhile, 50 Cent has remained unpredictable, which only adds to the tension. His history shows that he doesn't always respond immediately. Sometimes he lets things build, lets the conversation grow until it reaches a point where one move can have maximum impact, and that possibility is exactly what has people on edge. Some fans are even going back to his previous projects, looking for patterns, trying to understand how he operates when it comes to storytelling and exposing narratives. They're asking questions like, is this another calculated rollout, or is this something more personal? Is this about business, or is it about something that's been building behind the scenes for years? And as the discussion continues, one thing becomes clear. This isn't just another trending topic that will disappear overnight. The way it's unfolding, the way people are reacting, the way emotions are being pulled into it, all of it suggests that this is only the beginning of something much bigger. Because when stories like this start to take shape, they don't just affect the people directly involved. They ripple outward, touching fans, industry insiders, even casual observers who suddenly find themselves drawn into the drama. And the deeper it goes, the harder it becomes to separate what's real from what's being constructed in real time. Right now, everything feels like it's balancing on a line. On one side, it's speculation, rumors, unconfirmed reports. On the other side, it's perception, emotion, and the power of the narrative that's growing stronger by the minute. And somewhere in between, you have two names that carry years of history, success, and controversy, now being pulled back into the spotlight in a way that feels different from anything that's come before. And as people continue to watch, refresh, and react, one thought keeps coming up again and again. If this is how it's starting, what happens when it actually reaches its peak? What happens when it actually reaches its peak is exactly the question that started to dominate every conversation, because the deeper people looked, the more connections they thought they were finding. Timelines turned into investigation boards, with fans pulling old clips, resurfacing interviews, and matching statements from years apart as if they were pieces of a much larger story. And the more they connected those dots, the more intense the narrative became. One of the biggest turning points came when a longer clip began circulating, one that many claimed was part of this rumored documentary.
Concept. Again, nothing officially confirmed, but the way it was edited, the way it felt structured, it didn't come across like random footage. It felt intentional. In that clip, a voice calmly asked, "How many times have you been arrested?" And the response came back almost casually, "I don't have an actual factual number." That moment alone sent shockwaves through the conversation. Not because of what was said, but because of how it was said. It felt raw, unfiltered, like something that wasn't meant for a casual audience. Fans are shocked, and you could see it in real time. Comments flooded in with people saying things like, "This is getting serious," and "This ain't entertainment no more." Emotions ran high as viewers debated whether this kind of content crosses a line or simply exposes a reality that's always been there, but rarely shown this directly. But the clip didn't stop there. Another segment showed what appeared to be a conversation about loss, with a voice asking, "How did you tell his mom that her son was gone?" And for a moment, everything slowed down. The tone shifted from confrontational to deeply emotional, and that contrast is what made it hit even harder. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about rivalry, it was about consequences, about moments that carry weight far beyond headlines. And that's when people started to ask a different kind of question. If these clips are real, or even partially real, then who is behind the decision to bring them back into the spotlight now? Because timing in situations like this is never random. There's always a reason, even if that reason isn't immediately clear. Some online commentators suggested that this could be part of a larger strategy, not just to dominate headlines, but to reshape how certain stories are remembered. Because once something is presented in a documentary style, it carries a different kind of authority, whether it's verified or not. It feels more permanent, more impactful, like something that sticks. Others weren't buying it at all. They argued that this is exactly how narratives get manipulated, by presenting selective moments in a way that creates a specific impression. "You can make anything look like anything if you cut it right," one user commented, and that perspective gained traction as well. The audience wasn't just reacting, they were questioning, analyzing, pushing back. Meanwhile, people close to the situation, at least according to what's being shared online, were reportedly feeling the pressure. There were mentions of conversations happening behind closed doors, of concerns about how far this could go if it continues to gain momentum. Again, nothing confirmed, but the reports alone were enough to add another layer of tension. The family was left divided in the public eye, with some fans defending T.I. and Tiny, saying they've already addressed past allegations, and that bringing them back up like this feels unnecessary and unfair. Others argued that unresolved questions don't just disappear, and that if there's more to the story, it's going to come out eventually, one way or another. And then came another twist. A screenshot started circulating, allegedly showing a deleted post that hinted at a project title connected to these rumors. The post didn't stay up long, but long enough for people to capture it, share it, and turn it into a headline. That single moment shifted everything again, because now it wasn't just about clips, it was about intent. "This ain't random," one fan wrote. "This is planned." And that idea spread quickly, turning speculation into something that felt more structured, more deliberate. What made it even more intense was the way 50 Cent's history played into it. People started referencing how he's handled situations in the past, how he uses timing, how he builds narratives. They weren't just reacting to what was happening now, they were comparing it to patterns they believed they had already seen before. And whether those comparisons were accurate or not, they added fuel to the fire. T.I.'s side, on the other hand, remained measured, at least publicly. No direct confrontation, no explosive response, just subtle signals that left room for interpretation. In one resurfaced clip, he said, "People gon' believe what they want regardless." And that line echoed across comment sections as if it was a response to everything happening right now, even though it wasn't said in this context originally. Tiny's name continued to trend alongside his, which only intensified the emotional side of the situation. Because this wasn't just about one person anymore. It was about a family, a shared history, and a narrative that involved more than just music. Fans who had followed their journey for years found themselves conflicted, unsure whether to defend, question, or simply watch as things unfolded. And through all of this, one thing remained constant: uncertainty. Nobody could say for sure what was real, what was
edited, what was taken out of context, or what might still be coming. But that uncertainty didn't slow anything down. If anything, it made everything move faster. Because in a world where attention is currency, stories like this don't need confirmation to grow. They feed off curiosity, off emotion, off the need to understand something that feels just out of reach. And right now, this story is doing exactly that. Every refresh brings a new angle, a new clip, a new theory. And with each one, the line between rumor and reality becomes harder to see. Not because the truth isn't there, but because it's buried under layers of interpretation, speculation, and narrative building. And as people continue to debate, defend, and dissect every detail, one thing is becoming impossible to ignore. This isn't slowing down. If anything, it's building, piece by piece, towards something that feels like it's about to shift the entire conversation in a way nobody fully expected. towards something that feels like it's about to shift the entire conversation in a way nobody fully expected. And that's exactly when things took another turn that nobody saw coming. Because just as the debate was starting to settle into two clear sides, a new wave of content hit the internet. And this time, it wasn't just clips, it was reactions. People who had been quiet suddenly started speaking, not directly confirming anything, but adding enough emotion to make everything feel even more real. One industry insider in a live stream said, "When stuff like this starts popping up, it's never just about what you see." And that line alone sent viewers into another spiral of speculation. Because now it wasn't just about the footage, it was about what might be behind it. Fans are shocked, but now they're also uneasy. The tone of the conversation shifted from excitement to concern. Because when stories move from entertainment into something that feels personal, the energy changes. People started asking whether this was going too far, whether certain lines were being crossed in a way that could have real consequences. And then there was the moment that really pushed everything into a different space. Another clip surfaced, this one showing a tense exchange where a voice said, "This ain't about music no more." And even though nobody could verify where it came from, the impact was immediate. It felt like confirmation of what many were already thinking, that whatever this situation is, it's bigger than a rap beef. Emotions ran high as fans reacted to that clip. Some said it was the clearest sign yet that something serious was unfolding, while others argued that it could easily be taken out of context. "Y'all gotta stop jumping to conclusions," one comment read, while another replied, "Or maybe it's time to start paying attention." And right in the middle of all this, the idea of the documentary itself started to take on a life of its own. People weren't just talking about whether it exists, they were imagining what it could contain. Discussions popped up about possible interviews, unseen footage, stories that might be revisited or reframed. It became less about proof and more about possibility. That's when the conversation around legacy really started to take shape. Because for someone like T.I., whose career spans decades and whose influence is deeply rooted in the culture, the idea of a documentary built around controversy hits differently. It's not just about the present, it's about how the past is remembered. Some fans defended him strongly, pointing out that he's already faced scrutiny before and continued to move forward. They argued that bringing old narratives back into the spotlight like this feels like an attempt to overshadow everything else he's built. "You can't erase years of impact with rumors," one supporter wrote. But others pushed back, saying that impact and accountability can exist at the same time, that success doesn't mean certain questions shouldn't be asked. And that's where the division became even more clear. It wasn't just about choosing sides anymore. It was about how people define truth, fairness, and responsibility. The family was left divided in the public eye once again, with every mention of Tiny pulling more attention into the situation. Clips of past interviews, moments of laughter, moments of tension, everything was being reanalyzed through a new lens. And whether that lens was accurate or not didn't seem to matter, because once a narrative starts forming, it's hard to stop it. Meanwhile, 50 Cent's silence became louder than any statement could have been. No direct confirmation, no denial, just a presence that could be felt through the way everything was unfolding. People started interpreting that silence in different ways. Some saw it as control, as someone letting the story build on its own. Others saw it as avoidance, as someone stepping back while the narrative runs. One comment that gained a lot of attention said, "The quiet part is what should worry you." And that idea stuck, because in situations like this, silence can mean anything, and that ambiguity only adds to the tension. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get more intense, another twist entered the conversation. A rumor began circulating that certain interviews tied to this alleged project had been recorded months ago, long before any of this became public. Again, nothing confirmed, but the timing raised questions. If true, it would mean this wasn't a reaction. It was something planned, something prepared in advance. That possibility changed how people looked at everything. It suggested intention, strategy, a level of planning that goes beyond spontaneous drama. And whether or not that's accurate, the idea alone was enough to shift the tone once again. Fans started revisiting older interactions between 50 Cent and T.I., looking for signs, moments that might now seem more significant in hindsight. Lines that once felt like jokes were now being interpreted as warnings. Posts that seemed random were now being analyzed as clues. The entire history between them was being rewritten in real time by the audience. And as this reinterpretation continued, one thing became clear. This story wasn't just moving forward, it was expanding. It was pulling in the past, reshaping it, connecting it to the present in a way that made everything feel interconnected. Emotions ran high, not just among fans, but across the broader conversation. Because when a story reaches this level, it stops being contained within one space. It spreads, crossing platforms,
reaching people who might not even follow either artist closely, but are drawn in by the intensity of what's being discussed. And in the middle of all that noise, one question kept resurfacing. If this really is building towards something bigger, something more concrete, then what happens when that moment arrives? Because right now, everything is based on reports, clips, speculation. But if something official were to appear, something undeniable, it would change everything instantly. That possibility hung over every conversation, every reaction, every new piece of content that surfaced. It created a sense of anticipation mixed with tension, like everyone was waiting for something without knowing exactly what it would be. And as the situation continues to evolve, one thing is impossible to ignore. This isn't just a moment, it's a turning point in how stories like this unfold, how they're consumed, and how they impact the people involved. Because once a narrative reaches this level, it doesn't just fade away, it transforms into something much harder to control. And that's exactly where everything started to feel like it was slipping out of everyone's hands at the same time. Because once a narrative reaches that level, it no longer belongs to the people involved, it belongs to the audience. And right now, the audience is doing what it always does, taking pieces, building stories, and pushing them further than they were ever meant to go. What made this phase different was how personal the reaction started to get. It wasn't just commentary anymore, it was emotion. Fans who had followed T.I. for years began expressing disappointment, confusion, even frustration, not because anything had been confirmed, but because the possibility alone was enough to shake how they viewed everything. At the same time, others doubled down in support, calling the entire situation an attempt to damage a legacy that had already been earned. Fans are shocked, but now they're also defensive. You could see it in the way conversations turned into arguments, debates turning into full-blown clashes in comment sections. One side saying, "This is exactly why things need to be exposed," while the other replied, "Or maybe this is exactly how people get targeted." The energy wasn't neutral anymore, it was charged. And then came the moment that really pushed everything into overdrive. A short clip began circulating again, but this time it was edited differently, tighter, more focused, with dramatic pauses that made every word hit harder. In it, a voice said, "You can't control what comes out once it's out." And whether that line was originally connected to this situation or not didn't matter. The internet treated it like a statement about everything happening right now. Emotions ran high as that clip spread. People weren't just watching, they were reacting instantly, sharing, reposting, adding their own interpretations. And with every share, the story grew. Not necessarily in accuracy, but in impact, because perception had now taken over completely. Behind the scenes, according to ongoing reports and discussions, there were whispers of conversations happening, of people trying to understand what direction this might go in next. Some believe that if a documentary of this nature actually exists, it could change how stories in the
industry are told moving forward. Others believe that even the idea of it was enough to create damage, regardless of whether it ever sees the light of day. The family was left divided once again in the public eye, with every mention, every clip, every rumor pulling more attention into their personal space. Moments that once felt private were now being discussed openly, dissected, turned into talking points. And even though none of it was confirmed, the effect was real. T.I.'s legacy, which had always been tied to his influence, his music, his impact on the culture, was now being discussed alongside questions that many thought had already been addressed or moved past. And that shift, more than anything, is what made this situation feel different. It wasn't about adding something new, it was about reframing what was already there. On the other side, 50 Cent's role in all of this remained just as unclear, but just as powerful. Whether directly involved or simply connected through the way his name was being used in these reports, his presence shaped the entire narrative. Because people know how he operates, they know the effect he can have, and that knowledge alone adds weight to everything being said. One user summed it up in a comment that quickly went viral, saying, "Even if nothing drops, the idea already did what it needed to do." And that line stuck with a lot of people, because it highlights something important about moments like this. Sometimes the impact isn't in the final product, it's in the build-up, the conversation, the shift in perception. And as that idea spread, more people began to step back and look at the bigger picture. This wasn't just about two names. It was about how quickly narratives can form, how easily they can grow, and how difficult it is to control them once they reach a certain point. It was about the power of suggestion, the way a single report can turn into a widespread belief without ever being confirmed. Still, that didn't slow anything down. If anything, it made people more engaged, because uncertainty creates curiosity, and curiosity keeps people watching. Every new clip, every new post, every new reaction adds another layer, another reason to stay invested. And now, everything feels like it's sitting at a crossroads.
On one side, the possibility that this is all just a wave of speculation that will eventually fade. On the other side, the possibility that something more concrete could emerge, something that shifts everything instantly. That tension is what's keeping this story alive. It's what keeps people refreshing their feeds, checking for updates, waiting for something that might confirm or deny everything they've been seeing. And until that moment comes, if it ever does, the conversation isn't going anywhere. Because at this point, it's not just about what's true or what isn't. It's about what people believe, what they feel, and how those feelings shape the way the story continues to unfold. And right now, those feelings are stronger than ever, pulling more people into a situation that started as a rumor and has now become something much bigger. And as the noise continues to build, one thing becomes impossible to ignore. Whether this leads to something real or fades into the background, the impact has already been made. The questions have already been raised. The conversations have already changed. And once that happens, there's no real way to go back to how things were before. And now you see why this whole situation has the internet in a chokehold right now. What started as simple reports and circulating clips has turned into something much bigger, something that has people questioning everything, from timing to intent to what might actually be coming next. Because at this point, it's not just about whether a documentary exists or not. It's about the impact the idea alone has already created. Fans are shocked, emotions ran high, and the family was left divided in the public eye. Some people believe this is all just another calculated move designed to control the narrative, while others feel like this could be the beginning of something that changes how everything is seen moving forward. And that's what makes this so intense. Nobody really knows which direction this is going to take. So now it comes down to you. What do you think is really going on here? Do you believe these reports are hinting at something real behind the scenes? Or is this just the internet doing what it does best, turning speculation into something bigger than it actually is? And if something like this does come out, do you think it would actually change how people view T.I.'s legacy? Or would it just fade like every other controversy? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this is one of those situations where every opinion adds to the conversation. And trust me, people are paying attention. And if you enjoyed this breakdown and want more deep dives into stories like this, make sure you
Like the video so it reaches more people. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what's coming next. And turn on notifications because the way this story is unfolding, you already know there could be another update at any moment. Stay locked in because this one might not be over yet.